So today, I'm going to be taking a look at a vehicle that arguably has one of the coolest names ever. This is the GWM Tank, the Tank 300 to be exact, which is the smallest of the Tank series in the GWM model line, but it's still impressive. I'm going to be taking you all around the vehicle, inside the vehicle, taking it for a drive and giving my thoughts along the way. Let's start with the price. It comes in at $489,950 TT. Now you may be asking yourself, what segment does it fit in? Even though it's the smallest in the tank line, it's not really that small. For example, the exterior dimensions are as follows. It comes in at 6 feet 3 inches high, 6 feet 4 inches wide, 15 feet 7 inches long. It has a ground clearance of 9 inches, a curb weight of 4,750 pounds, a braked towing capacity of 5,511 pounds, and an unbraked towing capacity of 1,653 pounds. Now, I've been hearing people comparing it to the Suzuki Jimny, but it's unfair to compare both of them given the fact that it's so much bigger and so much more powerful, and the price point as well is also way above the Suzuki Jimny. So I think the better comparison would be the Jeep Wrangler versus the Tank. Now, just looking at the exterior, it does live up somewhat to its Tank name. It just looks robust. It doesn't look like it's aerodynamic at all. It looks like a G-Wagon, just smaller in terms of how it just looks bulky and squared out. There is an elephant in the room, however. The elephant in the room is at the front of it. Looks remarkably similar to a Ford Bronco. As a matter of fact, while we were coming back from a test drive, this happened.
What's that?
You look like a Ford Bronco, boy. How much for this?
489.
How much?
489.
489?
Yeah.
Ford Bronco price too, boy.
And yes, there's definitely a slight resemblance. I think it comes down to how the headlight assembly has that daytime running light strip running in between it. I think it comes down to that, and then both of them have wrong headlights. But let's take a closer look at the front. Here we have a front forward-facing camera. This is part of the 360 camera system. There you have those lights again. You have the GWM logo in front. All the lights are LEDs, by the way. Headlights, low beam, high beam, indicator, daytime running lights, all LEDs. Here you can see the wide wheel arches, which is suitable for a vehicle like this. After all, it's geared to be going off-road. And on top of that, it has a name to live up to, a tank. It cannot be out here looking weak and narrow-bodied like how the APVs from Suzuki looks. No, it has to be wide and rugged looking. So aside from serving a functional purpose, it also serves an aesthetic purpose as well, giving the vehicle a wider stance than it actually is. In terms of wheels, you have 17-inch wheels, 265, 65, 17s to be exact. Now pay attention not only to the ground clearance, but also the amount of room you have inside the wheel arch itself, in the wheel well there. It is a lot of room. This vehicle sits pretty high. I wouldn't say it sits high like maybe a monster truck, but it sits higher than normal, which is something you would expect given the fact, again, it's geared towards off-roading. Here you can see various components of the front suspension assembly. You have your shock mount, your anti-sway bar, and other components. Just looking around, that is how much room you have in here. I can fit my whole hand in here and just move a camera around. This is a look at your 9 inches of ground clearance. Now that 9 inches is from the lowest point of the vehicle, which in this case, and in most cases, is the differential at the rear here. Moving from under the vehicle, you have power folding mirrors with turn signal repeaters on both sides. Below that, you have your cameras left and right. Moving around to the rear of the tank, just like saying that, tank. You have your fifth door. I will call it a trunk, but some call it the fifth door. And on that door, you have your little netted thing there. I'm not sure what you can store there, but you can never have too much storage space. Below that, you have your strut. It keeps it open and not flapping in the wind when the wind blows. Over on the left here, you have another netted pocket. And also, there are hooks all over the rear of this vehicle. You have a hook here. You have one on top. The exact same thing over on the right-hand side. Hooks everywhere. There's no shortage of hooks at the rear here. You also have a single LED light on top here for illumination. Now regarding trunk space, I was unable to pin down the exact dimensions for the trunk, but according to Google, you have a total of 400 liters of space. I'm not sure if that is with or with the rear seats folded down, but the rear seats do fold down as well if you have no rear seat passengers and you have large cargo. Now obviously under here has no spare tire. The spare tire is located on the outside rear of the tank. So in here you just get things like a jack, your wheel spanner, and other things to replace or change your tire if you do get a flat. Now let's take a look at the inside of the tank, because after all it promises off-roading in luxury and comfort. So let's see if it lives up on the inside to those claims. Starting with the rear, the first thing you notice when you step in here, leather seats and soft touch materials practically everywhere that your hands will touch, which is something you don't find in a vehicle that is supposed to be an off-road vehicle. Most times, off-road centric vehicles come with a lot of hard plastics and big chunky buttons because it's meant to be off-road. But they try to make this as premium as possible. You even have ambient lighting, as you can see on the door there. The strip is currently set to purple. Now, if you are blindfolded, made to sit down in this vehicle, and you did a blindfold touch test, you would think that you were in a premium Audi or Mercedes Benz just by the feel. Not a vehicle that's supposed to be off-road centric, which is exactly what I think they set out to do. At the rear, you have dual power outlets, so if I find automakers need to start putting USB-C throughout vehicles. It's 2024, USB-C is all the rage. Come on, get with the times. You have rear AC vents, no fan controls, but you have directional controls. Always nice to see that the rear seat passengers can stay cool. And like I said, almost everything that your hand comes into contact with above the cup holders, soft touch materials. By the window, at the side, where elbow rests, even the handle here that is meant to hold on when you are going off-road, soft touch materials. Even on the dash, when you poke it, you prod it, it's soft to the touch. Now the average person won't go poking and prodding around their vehicle. When's the last time you touched a dashboard? Hardly ever. But soft touch materials have historically been a sign of premium. So you can't promise premium off-roading and then give us a bunch of hard plastics. I guess that's the thought process behind all of this. Now I pulled and prodded, listening for creaks and rattles, and I was unable to hear any, which is a good thing because the last thing you want is to spend $500,000 and then you're hearing creak, creak, creak going down the road. In terms of safety, not only do you have a 5-star NCAP safety rating, but you also have 7 airbags standard, just in case worst comes to worst. Some more notable features: autonomous emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keeper assist, blind spot warning, rear cross traffic alert with braking, so in case you are backing out and you're not seeing that something is behind you, the vehicle should stop itself before you hit it or hit the person or whoever it may be. You also have tire pressure monitoring, front and rear parking sensors, speed sign recognition, a 360-degree camera system, and an 8-speaker audio system. Both driver and passenger seats are fully powered because, again, let's be real, you're paying close to $500,000. You might as well get all the creature comforts. You have all your useful steering wheel controls, and behind that you have an all-glass instrument cluster. No physical dials, just one giant screen showing you everything you need to know at a glance. To the left of that, you have another giant screen, which is your infotainment system, but we will touch on that later on in the video. You have this giant handle here, just in case you're on the trails, you have something for your passenger to hold on to. In fact, you have 4 handles in front here alone. You have that one, you have one on the door, one on the A-pillar, and your normal Jesus handle on top there. Next, we have your typical controls you'll find in most vehicles. You have your AC on off, your fan speed, mode, temperature controls, recirculate on or off, and your auto. Below that, you have a USB-C, next to standard USB ports, and to the far right, you have a power outlet or a cigarette lighter, whatever you want to call it. Above that, you have a rounded dial with a clock in the center and 3 buttons. Hazards and your 2 defrost buttons there for your windshield in case your windshield is fogging up. And then you have these vents that, yes, they do look like a Mercedes style vent, but they have a satisfying click to them when you turn them. Just listen to it. It sounds and feels pretty nice. Next, you have one of the coolest gear shifters in the automotive industry. It has this kind of angular look to it. Now, it's really aesthetics over function because it's shift by wire. So you don't need any leverage. You don't need it to be angular like that. But it looks cool, and I'm guessing that is why they did it. No matter what angle you look at it from, it looks pretty cool. It looks like something you would expect in a vehicle that is named a tank. To shift, you just squeeze either end, you pull it back for drive, or you push it forward for reverse or halfway forward for neutral, and to enter park, you just push the park button. On the left of the gear lever, you have your controls, whether you want to lock or open your front or your rear differential. You have this option here, which helps the vehicle turn in a tighter circle if you're on a loose surface. And then you have your hill descent control further up there. Above that, you have your mode selector. Here you can select what you're driving on in terms of the surface, whether it's mud, snow, sand, gravel. And then to the right of that, you have a selector where you can select 2 high, 4 low. Moving further back to the center console area here, you have your cup holders hidden under this nice shelf. So when that's in use, you can have this shelf there to put your phone or whatever you may want to put in there. You have your center glove box, and it's cooled. So there's a little pass through here that takes cold air from the AC and pumps it into here. So if you have something that you want to keep, it wouldn't freeze it, it's not a fridge. But if you have something that is really temperature sensitive, you can put it in here and this little pass-through will keep it above ambient temperature. And getting back to the soft touch, because obviously this is soft touch as well. See how soft it is? Yeah, you'll have no problem touching any part of this vehicle. Everything is just soft and cushiony. Above all of that, you have your typical shades holder. Most vehicles have that. Forward of that, you have your lighting controls. They are LEDs. And then forward of that, you have your sunroof controls. You have one control for the sunshade only, and then you have one for the actual glass roof to lift up. Both driver and passenger sun visors have vanity mirrors with LED illumination on it, and it have this pretty cool thing. By the rearview mirror has this USB outlet. So if you have to run a dash cam here, the USB outlet is right there. You don't have to route it through all the side, come down by the A-pillar, push it through some hole behind the dash. It's right there. Personally, all vehicles in 2024 needs to come with a dash cam. But if that is asking too much, is this asking too much? Just put the USB outlet right there so I can install my own dash cam without having to route wires through all the A-pillar and all of that. Just put it right there. It's convenient. Next, let's take a look at the 360 camera system. It has guidelines not only for the rear wheels as to where the rear of the vehicle is going to go, but also where the front is turning towards. This is something that is still niche. Very few cars have it, but I'm seeing it popping up more and more and more. In a few years to come, this will be industry standard, because why the hell not? You can also hit these points here and get a detailed view of around the vehicle. At fixed points, you can't just swipe your finger and go around infinitely, but it's still pretty cool to have. Next, you have this option here, which allows you to remove the body of the vehicle and look like you are looking down low as to where the wheels are relative to where the ground is. Then you have this option to zoom in on the rear, and you can actually see the guidelines up close. In case you really can't drive and shouldn't be on the road, you have this zoomed in version here. You can also change the color of the vehicle to whatever you want. Maybe you bought the wrong color and you want to fool yourself into thinking you have a red version. You have that option. You can remove the body of the vehicle from the front and look at it from this view. You can also remove the ground rendering, and you have different settings that you can change in terms of what it looks like and how it reacts. Now, you all know how I love a fast and responsive touchscreen, and this touchscreen, it doesn't disappoint. Just look at how quickly this thing reacts. Now, there are far too many menus and sub-menus with different settings to go into each one in this video. But just the basics. You can change your ambient lighting to different colors. You have a setting for that here. These are all the colors you have. Red, blue, purple, green, pink. Then you can go into here and adjust your steering wheel feel if you want it to be extra soft, normal, or sporty, which will make it more weighty. This menu deals with your lane keeper assist, your blind spot warning. If you want it to be active or passive or off in total, then you can change things like your steering wheel if you wanted to pull you back into lane, or just simply vibrate, or just turn off altogether. I would recommend turning it off altogether, because I don't think it works pretty well. I think it tries to pull you back in lane every single chance it gets, and it's kind of disconcerting feeling your steering wheel fighting you the whole drive. So I think most people will turn that feature off or just leave it on passive. Just beep and let me know I'm coming out of lane. Yes, you do have Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, along with Bluetooth, and you also have a USB input in case you are into that. So now, the only thing left to do is to take it out on the road and see how it drives. When I'm testing a vehicle, one of the things I like doing is testing to see how well it merges, how the power comes down. And where this dealership is located is from a dealership onto a highway, so it provided the best opportunity for this test. Unfortunately for me, there was a truck on the left lane that I was trying to merge onto, but once I was able to clear that obstacle, I was able to match the speed of oncoming traffic and even pass some of them. So even though the tank is 47 plus 100 pounds, it's by no means a slouch. But what powers the Tank 300? Well, it's powered by a turbocharged 2-liter engine that has 224 horsepower and just about 380 foot-pounds of torque, and it sends power to the wheels via an 8-speed ZF transmission. Now it must be noted once more, even though I would have compared it to the Jimny earlier on, that was only because the Jimnys are common vehicles, so most people can gauge the reference of how large it is compared to a Jimny. But this is more geared to take on things like the Jeep Wrangler and vehicles within that class. And this power really shows it, because you can't really compare 224 horsepower to whatever the Jimny has to offer. The Jimny is not even turbocharged, it's naturally aspirated. So this is really not even in that class. It's almost advantageous to even put them up against each other, aside for the comparison of just size-wise. Now you all are about to see me struggle with something that I never thought I would have ever struggled with ever in my life. The indicators. The problem that I was encountering was that it doesn't go down and stay in a position and then you push it back up to cancel it, or you pull it down to cancel it. It goes down and comes back to a neutral position and the indicator is still on. So then you have to touch it slightly to turn it off. But when I did that, it turned the other side on. So for the entire review, the indicator was going left, right, every time I used it. Drivers are probably wondering, what the hell is this driver doing? You buy a new car and you can't drive. By the end of the review, I think I got it. But you see, at the start, it was a total mess. It was left, right. Eventually, I just stopped using it altogether because, like, what even is this? I am not that dumb to be humbled by an indicator lever. But back to driving. One thing I realized quickly, if you are using the paddle shifters, whatever gear you are in, the vehicle doesn't force you to shift gear. It stays there. What just happened there was that first gear caught me off guard. First gear is so short that I turned out onto the highway expecting a bit more distance in first gear. Nope, first gear was done. But the vehicle, unlike most other Tiptronic vehicles, it doesn't shift into second realizing, okay, you're messing up. It leaves you in gear. And that's why I said it's the most manual Tiptronic mode ever. Because in the vast majority of Tiptronic vehicles, if you shift into Tiptronic mode and you, let's say, you go from second to third, and you reach the end of third, after a while, the car will shift into fourth for you automatically. It will take back control, realizing you clearly don't know what you're doing. But this one just leaves you. And I guess this goes back to the off-roading progress again, because you don't want to be on the trails wanting to be in a particular gear, but the computer thinks it knows best and keeps shifting gear for you. No, it's going to leave you there until absolutely necessary, when I assume it may take control if you're really overdoing it. It can be over-revving your engine for a good 5 minutes straight. Now, in terms of driving comfort, I would say it's right up there with air suspension. Now, you may say, train driver, what are you talking rubbish, but it's true. Go give it a test drive and tell me if I'm lying. It's right up there with air suspension. I'm not sure how they tune the suspension, but it's really compliant. We are driving in this bumpy road here. Now, we deliberately went to this bumpy road just to feel how the vehicle drives. Unfortunately, as we were entering the bumpiest section of the road, the GoPro decided it had enough of life and the battery died. So I have no more footage of it on this bumpy road here. But switching to the internal view, you can see that the vehicle, even though it's bumping, obviously, you're not hearing excessive creaks and rattles, and the bumps aren't really jarring. It's really cushioning the blows of most of these bumps. Now, for the vast majority of this review, I had the steering wheel in its lightest setting of comfort. If you all are familiar with the 2015 Kia Cerato, it had a button on the steering wheel where you can change the weight of the steering wheel from soft, normal, sport. This one has the same feature like I showed earlier on, but it's jarring here given the fact that you are in a larger vehicle. And your mind tends to think, why is the steering wheel so light? You can literally turn the steering wheel with your baby finger. That is how light and effortless it is to turn the steering wheel in a big vehicle. Now, staying in line with the steering, it has lane keeper assist, both active and passive, which is just beeping or actually pulling the steering wheel and pulling you back into lane. I don't like the implementation. It keeps trying to pull you left, right, and it beeps at everything. I would just turn this off if I own the vehicle. Yeah, that constant beeping will annoy anyone and make them turn that entire system off, especially the active lane keeper assist, which pulls the steering wheel if you even look at the white line funny. Most people will turn that feature off the first day they get the vehicle. Now, other than that, yes, it drives really well. It has a lot of torque. It has the horsepower. It also feels really, really comfortable and stable over uneven surfaces. But I heard a talk online that said that it doesn't brake well. When you slam on the brakes, the rear lifts up and it doesn't brake well. So I say, you know what? Let's test it out. Now, it didn't feel like the rear lifted up to me. I didn't have any outside footage to show, but it felt like it was actually stopping. And this was the worst place to actually do a braking test because the asphalt isn't even. As you can see, there are patches here, it's rough. So that means it's actually giving the ABS more work to do, because at some points, the wheels will be losing contact with the road momentarily because it's rough. And it was still able to stop. Now the front did dip down considerably, but it didn't dip down to a point where I'm like, okay, we're going to tip over or anything. No, the suspension is just pretty soft. Now that racket you heard in the back coming to the end of the braking test, it wasn't the vehicle falling apart. It was all the GoPros and stuff that was on the back seat just flung to the front. Now the braking test that was done wasn't done at 150 kilometers per hour. It was just short of 80 kilometers. So I'm judging it based off that. And even then, you have to remember that the tank isn't a light vehicle. It's 4,740 pounds, which is just about 230 pounds shy of being as heavy as a Prado. And on top of that, it has soft suspension because clearly they prioritize luxury and comfort. Even though it's supposed to be an off-road vehicle, out the showroom, they prioritize luxury and comfort. So out of the showroom, the suspension is tuned pretty soft. That is why under heavy braking, it does tend to dip so much. All in all, the tank has all the features you can ask for, except massage seats. Things I don't like, that indicator setup. There was nothing wrong with the conventional up-down indicator setup. I don't like that funny, touch-sensitive type thing they have going there. Next, I would say give us an all-glass roof. I know it's supposed to be an off-road vehicle, but come on, it's almost 500,000 TT. Give us an all-glass roof. And the final thing that I don't like has to be the implementation of the lane keeper assist. I'm not sure what was wrong. I'm not sure if the cameras were dirty, if the sun was too hot, but it just doesn't seem as precise as I would like in a vehicle that costs $500,000. But other than those three things, I like everything else. But don't take my word for it. Go to the dealership, ask for a test drive it for yourself, and tell me if anything I said wasn't true.